No, don't stand by. We're starting the show. Hello, welcome to Get Energized, yet another episode of Get Energized, I should say, at our new time, if you're following. So we're actually switched our first Thursday of the month. It's now 2 times a month. I'm sorry, you have to see us twice a month now. Second Thursday and fourth Thursday. So that's the new schedule. Not a whole lot to say beyond that. But anyways, I'm Lee. Dan, you want to say hi?
Dan, nice to meet you guys. Glad everyone's here. Yeah, we're going twice a week now.
Yep, twice a week. Be ready for that. Today's energy choice is something my daughter's got me, a Sonic the Hedgehog.
That is very cool.
Yeah. I'm not sure what it tastes like. It's not hedgehog, but
as long as that's got caffeine.
It's got a lot of caffeine, so we're good to go, right? We were energized. As it goes, for usual, this is a show related to energy, utilities, power, sustainability, anything related to that. So today is a little different. We don't have a guest with us today. So you're stuck with us as a double dose already. But what we do have is a pretty cool piece of equipment here. This is an IoT device, and it is a smart power cable. As you can see here, the power cord is going to be used to do some analytics in the cloud and track some energy consumption. So that's what we're going to demonstrate today. And it's actually from a QuickSight. But I suppose we should define IoT first. Right. So,
yeah. So, I mean, IoT, we're defining it as like objects that you can connect to the internet, that you can connect them in unison, and you get to see where your inefficiencies are and actually try to drive more efficiency with your different devices. And it's revolutionized the home and in industry. So there's you can see from the Ring doorbell to many other devices that you find around the house in the kitchen that you can actually start connecting to the internet.
Yeah, and from a standpoint of what we're showing today, it's not really consumer focused here. Obviously, the stuff Dan's mentioned, you might be more familiar with that, but this is a pretty heavy duty cable. I'll show you the spec sheet once we get going on this, but it's pretty different in that regard. I'm just logging into our console so I can have everything ready for us. But let's just get started. Start to show this thing. Any questions you have, feel free, of course, to go into chat. And let's make sure this pops up. There we go. All right, cool. So today what we're doing is from a QuickSight, and that's actually why we selected this one. So there's a lot you can do in IoT, right? From IoT Core, or Greengrass, or SiteWise, all these different components we go into. But this is a QuickSight that's pretty much ready to go. It's specifically built for this cable. And this little cable, again, just to show it, pretty heavy duty. We're lucky to have it today because it was lost in the mail with UPS originally. And they didn't believe me, but they said it was signed for someone who signed it Word. I'm not cool enough to be named Word. So eventually they realized.
I swear he was just like, Word, thanks for the cable.
Yeah,
and signed it off.
Then he realized there's a power cable. What am I going to do with this? So eventually we got it. And we're back, and it's here. But it's this QuickSight is tied to this Grid Connect, which is the maker of that wire, and Trek 10, who put together the software stack that we're going to look at here. So a QuickSight, if you're familiar with it, basically solution architects or partner companies build QuickSights, and it is what it sounds like, right? It's a very fast deployment approach to give you something to get started. And that's what we do today. So if we look, you can do this by technology, you can do this by industry. But if we look, we're at energy, and we go to Internet of Things, there's one, and that's what we're doing today. It's the Smart Power Cord, and that is this QuickSight here. So if you click it and you go into it, it literally tells you everything involved with this process, right? This is the cable that you're looking at. Effectively the diagram of what you'll be deploying, all the technologies involved to make this work, how you deploy it, and then costs, licenses associated with this here. So again, consumer device, if you connect it, you're usually not paying for the cloud processing. You bought that, maybe a subscription. In this case, we're deploying to an AWS account. So if we were an industrial organization and we had a bunch of these, we could do that, right? And we can manage that in AWS with the purpose of what we have here. So
we're going to emphasize that this is industrial. So while we're going to show how to set it up, and it's not hard to set up, it's not going to be like other IoT devices that you're probably familiar with around the house.
Right.
Right. But we're going to go through the whole process, and it's not too hard, and it does have benefits if you want to use it for personal use.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we do that, I'll just show you if you were to deploy this, right? So here's what you got. You've got a CloudFormation stack effectively, right? And this is what you would deploy. If you click that quick start, go to deploy, you've got a destination to pull the entire CloudFormation from. You can view this in Designer. I won't do that right now, but you would just go ahead and basically define how long you're keeping analytics information, your API gateway configuration, the actual quick start names. You don't have to change these. All this is ready to go, and it'll append some other text to it so that's unique to you, right? And really, that's all there is to it. You go through this. The takeaway of what we built today is we're pulling in this quick start, and it's going to run in CloudFormation, which is the infrastructure as code, and build everything we need out of it. So we click ran. I obviously did this in the past so that you can see what you're seeing today. And I'll move this back over here while we look at the actual cord, right? So when I said industrial, it's $130. This is pretty heavy duty. The actual quick cable, if you look at it here, a lot of definitions around the benefits, the applications here. And again, if we're thinking as like what a customer would do in this particular case, tracking motors and pump failures, anything that would go downstream for predictive analytics or when something failed, or looking at irregularities to find deficiencies, all that can be done from this. So, actually one I like here is even the electric vehicle charging. So if you had a bunch of these just to track how much was coming through on vehicle usage at rates, times, anything irregular, you can do that.
That's the personal use. If you had an electric vehicle that you had, like a Tesla that you were charging at home over the night, you'd be able to use this cable and see where the charging was happening, efficiencies, and driving that forward.
Or even for fleets, right? So there you go. I think we'll put the link in chat to two things real quickly here. So first is the actual quick start, right? If you want to see it, is it setting for my computer or not? There we go. So that's the actual link to the quick start. And this is the actual cable specific to the quick start. And I'll tell you, I had to do a bit of debugging at first to get it working, but the code base is updated. So if you do this now, everything is good to go.
We fixed it for you.
Yeah, exactly. So you should be very happy, right? But what you can see in terms of talking about this being industrial and why this is something that would last and be used for something like predictive maintenance, intelligence, anything down the line here, it's a heavy duty device. So you've got your power plug into your receptacle. You've got a meter, obviously charging this. There's a 32-bit processor inside that box, and it's got a Wi-Fi client for a soft access point. And so that's actually how you configure and set this up, right? There's a crypto module tied to that, but this connecting to a network, you initially do that with an access point on the actual power adapter. It's pretty cool. And this is effectively what's built out if we stop and think about it for a second here. But that cable pushes through API gateway into some Lambdas and then into IoT core. So it's basically tracked in IoT core. Could you go all the way to SiteWise? Yeah, but I mean, it's one cable. So that's what we're showing today here. And this sends notifications out through an SNS topic. You can keep up to date with a lot of the other items that you would want if you want to change any alerting. But if you're just sticking out of the box, it's pretty straightforward. What we're ultimately going to show afterwards is the actual IoT analytics on it, right? And then that's going to go into QuickSight. So we'll show that in a few minutes, but just to drill home the point of this being industrial and what you're looking at.
Yeah.
Temperature rating, 0 to 45 degrees Celsius, just on the button to push on or off a button. It's a lot, but the electronics, -40 to 85 degrees Celsius. I hope you're not operating in these kind of environments. I don't see.
Shout out to Canada.
Yeah. If you can, anybody who's
on Grand Tour, which is on Amazon Prime.
Amazon Prime,
Norway, Finland, and Sweden.
Yeah,
going up near the Arctic Circle.
You could bring this along
for their cars.
Maybe we'll tell them to do that for charging cars next time, right? There's got to be an episode coming up. But yeah, I mean, this is heavy duty stuff. We're not joking around. So when you consider that and what you're looking at, you can kind of see what the benefit of a quick start would be. Because for a lot of people, you're not necessarily going to be starting with something small or consumer based when you're looking at it from an actual industrial perspective. So going into this, actually looking at what we deploy now, let's scroll all the way up. This is the reference deployment guide, right? So the overview is effectively what I've shown you so far. A quick start exists, take the CloudFormation, go out and deploy it here. The architecture, we've already kind of touched on it. The additional components shown here, which we didn't do today here, is so SageMaker from an ML perspective could be used if you wanted to do something like run some ML analysis on it. And of course, site-wise for managing a whole fleet of these if you were to do something. But that's not actually going to be covered today. We're just mentioning that it's there.
I mean, it also works with other devices
Yeah.
with this data too. So and the idea here is you're collecting a lot of different data from many different IoT devices. This is just a very helpful one
Yes.
with anything you're plugging in.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, so you want to add this to a fleet of something you have currently in place or build a fleet around it, you can do that, right? You could definitely do that. So with that in mind, the actual pre-deployment steps are just to pull in what you saw and get a CloudFormation, make sure it runs and works, right? Once you've done that, there's a few more steps. And actually, so this is, again, kind of aimed at a developer versus something like an end user who just wants to push a button and maybe, you know, at home they have a lamp they're going to plug in and turn it on and off. It's slightly different than that. What you get instead is a need for some code and some setup here. So this code base and this file here, we'll take a look through it, but you actually pull that from GitHub. And it's a great GitHub. They updated this recently, but this repository is how you get everything you need, right? So it explains how the LED light works, what it's giving you from a notification standpoint. It tells you how to set it up. And in this particular case,
complicated LED, let me tell you.
Yeah, 2 lights. So actually, there's a lot of rules. It's cool. It gives you notifications if you look. But holding the button for 10 seconds turns it into that access point. And so very briefly, you'll be able to connect your computer. Like I literally took my Mac, and instead of connecting to my network, I connected to the cable, right? And then from that cable and its access point, you run the configuration that we're looking at here. So that's all related to the code base that you pull here in Python 3.8. It's all up to date. But effectively, yeah, so there's your soft access point IP address, right? And you can look through the configuration here, but everything's effectively just taking what you define as config and then provisioning this into your AWS account, right? All of these are going to different endpoints that are stood up as part of the CloudFormation. And in particular, you know, if we look at literally getting your networks and provisioning here, you send along a device type, serial number, everything that's on there, along with what you do in your staging example configuration. So you would actually put the ID of your network, password. I know, so that's the one sketchy part, right? But you'll effectively put your password, the ID, and whatever your provisioned IoT and API endpoints are inside of your account. And then you're going to send that along when you run this script. And then you'll just watch it to work. So you can see down here, sends a registration, you wait for completion, and effectively 11 seconds later, all of this was done. You get an acknowledgement that it's in there, and then if we go into our account, we can see it. So if I'm in IoT, right, and I'm going to go to all devices and things, I'm going to pull this over so you can see it. This is the thing. This is our power cord, right? It's sitting right here. You can even go to certificates to make sure everything's up and right. We have a certificate ID, status is active, so configured security, everything that we would expect out of that. Quite a while until it expires, just as a heads up there. So I guess they build this to last, right? So hey, that's great. But what you have is a connected device now monitoring, and then so if we go into analytics,
IAM.
No, not even that. We just here. Let's pull. I'll show you the IoT analytics screen where we'll skip all the kind of the security conversation and go to the cool stuff. If it loads for me, let's pull back over. Getting a bit of a delay here. All right, there we go. So from here, we literally get a data store, right? So again, when we talk about the data that's provisioned to come into it, there's your IoT analytics data store. It's ready to go, and you can see that it's been running for quite some time. September 3rd, I first done this, and the data set that actually comes from that particular quick start. So every 5 minutes, it's basically taking my gaming PC, personal laptop gaming PC. So it's not as high as you would see from power consumption on one of the big cool boxes, but it's taking that and pushing that into this data set that we run analytics on it. And so in this particular case, the really easy, cool thing to do is go and into QuickSight, which is the analytics dashboard, right? And just show this. What are we actually doing and what are we looking at? So we'll let that load. And again,
how
the really
often
nice
can you pull data?
Say that
how
again?
often can you pull data?
So you can pull as much as you want. So you could set that up to schedule. That's a good point. So let's go into the data sets here in QuickSight, and you'll see the ConnectSense Quick Start. this is real easy. So this is what I'm using, and it runs basically, let's look at our refresh rate. So it runs daily, hourly. I'm sorry, I set it up hourly for a full refresh. And it looks like it disconnected because it did the other day for the actual cable. So when I pull up the grid, we'll look at it differently, but it goes in and it takes a record every single time, which if you're interested in changing, you could refresh up top, or just from understanding how little work is needed for this, you would click new data set and you would go to IoT Analytics. And because we have the quick start, you'd be right. That's all you click. That stood up and created for you as part of the quick start guide. So that's all we did and set it up. And lo and behold, you have a data set. And if we go into QuickSight, we actually look at the analysis. It's going to have a bunch of empty data at the end here because we've disconnected. But we'll scroll around. You can see that there's a peak and some usage that happened at actually 1 a.m. or so when this was plugged in running, and then a whole lot of nothing. That's correct, though. But and again, what this has done is these are all fields defined from the definition file for everything you saw in the CloudFormation. So the power factor, date time, amplitude, volts, this all comes out of the box, and you can figure and build a graph. And, you know, if you didn't know what you're doing, the cool part is that's all shown, let's see, in the second part of the operational guide, right? So if we look at the operational guide, once you've stood everything up and it's in there, you actually have an instruction to walk this way. And I don't know what just happened to my screen, but I lost the stream. Let's bring that back over. You're looking at my view, you lucky viewers. Okay, so this dashboard, data set's in there, you're ready to go. It tells you what fields to select if you weren't sure what to do here. But going to Dan's point earlier about what if there was a fleet, this shows you, you could have a different graph of a bunch of different usage, and their watts are a little bit higher than a very power efficient laptop that's plugged in right now currently. But that's what you could do, present just out of the box with very, very little configuration. And I'm sure as many people are familiar with QuickSight, or if you're not, it also gives you some generic, I shouldn't say generic, but very straightforward ways to go ahead and click on an analysis, right? So if you're not actually sure what to model or what to look at, you'll get identifications. And hey, look at that. That would be an anomaly, right? So I did nothing, right? This is just a model that's trained and provided by AWS. So that's in terms of what I meant generic, just to find anomalies in your data. And 266% up, I would genuinely consider an anomaly, right? So it found that, and that gives you something to look at, right? So if you're tracking, what did we say? We said cars earlier at home, right?
Yeah.
But another example was office equipment, right? Standard IT stuff, like my laptop plugged in here. But if you needed to see something irregular or you're uncertain of it, even without training the SageMaker model, which you could do from this, you also get something simple like an anomaly insight just through going through QuickSight. So it's a very effective process, right? I mean,
just look at how many, if you had more than one setup, what you could be doing on figuring out efficiencies if you have a small company or even a larger company, what you could be doing tracking things with this.
Absolutely. And I think that's probably, that's why when we received some feedback on what to show on Twitch, I think this was a cool use case for it here, because we cover a little bit of how much IoT enables this to be done with relative ease, especially if you're looking at something like a quick start, right? So this is even without really a lot of configuration. The closest amount of configuration is from running this actual Python file, right? And so you need a little bit of savviness if you're going to do that from a developer standpoint, but that's all there is to it. It can quickly enable a lot of growth. And from the data set, right, that we saw in IoT Analytics, if you wanted to add a bunch more into it, you could, right? You could absolutely add and have more cables and everything go into that data set, maybe set up a channel to pull your data from, but pretty cool. And thank you. But everything else we have from there is pretty much covered in either the guide or what we're showing right now. So that's the whole takeaway, is the relative ease that it takes to do this and how effective the quick starts are. So, I mean, I've already said it. I'm going to keep drilling it home because I think this is a nice part, but people often don't think of the AWS quick starts. highly encourage you to take a look at these, even if you're just trying to think of other options, right? So we can take off energy and IoT. There's a lot of things out here, right? Even if you just wanted to look and have an idea of like, where would I start if I'm looking at some computing and networking solutions that exist in AWS? I would click that just by technology. Look at it. You have a bunch of VMware, Cisco, serverless transit network orchestrators. These are all out there, and these are vetted and verified to be working from AWS and from partners. So highly encouraged to look at this regardless of what we're talking about today.
Yeah, it's a wonderful resource. We put the link in the chat for everybody.
Yep, link is in chat. Encourage you to take a look if this comes up to you. But otherwise, that's our demonstration today. And so hopefully it gets you to think about how this can kind of enable some other use cases or even management of energy consumption from pretty much anything you can plug into a cable. We do have a couple things to plug, right? So being from the energy team, there's a couple things upcoming that are worth mentioning. And there's a sustainability day if you are in Houston, Texas. So I don't think most of you are, right? But from a perspective here, one of the items we were going to cover was that the sustainability workshop will happen in Houston on Wednesday, October 19th. So there's no link for me to post here specifically right now, but if you're in contact with any of your account representatives or solution architects, anyone who's involved in this here and you'd like to be invited to that, let them know. They can forward this along to you. And that day will be about sustainability initiatives, achieving those goals. And there's going to be many, many partners showing up, giving demonstrations and showing some of the options that are available to get started on that. So
you can check our LinkedIn's too, because we'll have that posted.
Absolutely.
And
absolutely. That'll be posted. And the other thing we won't spoil is we'll be setting up Twitter and YouTube for all of these. If you do want old videos, videos from last week, they are in Twitch in the collections as well under Get Energized. So know that that's there if you want it. You're pretty much good to go. But I would highly encourage you to go take a look at Quick Starts. If you're in energy space, particularly in Houston, and want to be invited, reach out, let us know. But that's our demo for today. If there's any questions, let us know right now, or can reach out to us afterwards. We got a couple last time afterwards. Certainly encourage that by all means. We like to get feedback. So with that, for one last time, I'm going to grab the links. If you just came now into chat, and give you the ConnectSense cable quick start if you want to look at this. And the actual cable itself is linked here. All right. Yeah, if you have more questions, let us know. Also check those guides. Those guides are fantastic. It'll walk you through pretty much everything, because when you follow this and you go through the deployment, the details is what takes you to that actual reference that you saw earlier. So very easy to navigate as well. You'll be good to go. Dan, should we have any closing comments? Anything we should bring up here?
I think we summed up with the sustainability conference and everything else like that. We're looking for it. Remember, every 2 weeks we'll be back, not next Thursday, but the Thursday after. I believe it's October 6th. Is that right?
Yeah, that's the double check just to not be wrong. Yeah, so the 13th and 27th, actually. So,
27th.
Yep, so there you go. So October 13th, next show, then the 27th. And hopefully we're debating a Halloween theme on that one. So we'll see what we do. Let us know. That's all for now. Thanks for stopping by. We will be back later and again and again and again, unfortunately. So you'll have to deal with us. But thanks for reviewing, and stay tuned. There's going to be some more shows coming up after this. Okay? Take care. Oh, very close. Very close.
You could stop it, reframe.
I know. Very close, though. All right. Take care,
everybody.